big.
It's going to be Wade. Roll Tide.
There you go.
It's light work, period. Light work.
Jasmine Walker.
Joshua Primo. Herbert Jones.
Roll Tide and welcome to TideTV this week. I'm Roger Hoover, joined by Kennedy Chase, and it was a tight game in the swamp, but Alabama got the win.
Yes, roll tide to that.
Alabama got off to a fast start in Gainesville, jumping out to a 21-3 lead. But just like in last year's SEC championship game, the Gators fought back. But Alabama was just too much, as the number one ranked Crimson Tide held on for the 31-29 win.
Now let's take a look at an all-access look at the highlights between number one Alabama and the 11th ranked Florida Gators.
And you can tell by the crowd reaction, positively and negatively. Here come the Alabama Crimson Tide.
On 2nd and 5, and the throw is out to Slade Bolden. Bolden across the 40, big gainer out to the 45-yard line.
Here now the inside give. Robinson delay, big slot, right side, 10, 9, down to the 5-yard line.
McClellan will motion out of the backfield. Young's going to look that way. Got it to him. Going to move on one man, and did he get there? He did. Touchdown, Alabama.
Gets the snap, stands in and throws. Williams has it. First down, Alabama. Yes. Jones backpedals, looks, hit as he throws. Ball is up. Intercepted, Alabama at the 40, down the right side. Picked off by Jalen Armour Davis. Quick release to McClellan, but he gets away from the tackler to the 40-45. Runs over a man and goes out of bounds at the 49-yard line. Looks his way, then throws. Man is wide open. Caught over the shoulder.
The throw is to wide open Billingsley. If he got the pylon, he got the touchdown, and he did.
Robinson deploys, picks up a man, cuts inside the defender. He'll walk it in for another Alabama touchdown.
Blitz on To'o. He's going to loft the screen, and it's going the wrong way again. First down at the 43. Now Young back to the air. Across the middle. Oh, what a catch by Williams. And he's still running. Young fires complete. The tight end, Latu, did he get it?
He stretched the ball out.
Under center. Here's the give. Touchdown, Alabama with a run off the left side. A nice block by Robbie Oots, opening up that side for Brian Robinson. Two-point conversion try. And he'll get to the one. He is stopped. Alabama holds on the two-point conversion. He'll escape. He'll go to the far side. Taken down by Alabama. And that is going to be the ball game.
In their SEC opener, the Tide got the big road win over the Gators in the swamp. And for their performance of the win, Coach Saban and the Crimson Tide coaching staff selected 5 players of the week.
2 players were honored on offense, and they were both running backs. Jace McClellan tied for second in receptions with 4 catches for 41 yards and a touchdown. McClellan finished with 58 all-purpose yards. Brian Robinson Jr. led the Crimson Tide backfield, rushing 15 times for 78 yards and a rushing touchdown. Robinson also found the end zone on a 7-yard pass from Bryce Young.
2 more players were selected on defense. Will Anderson Jr. finished with 7 tackles and a quarterback hurry. Anderson also totaled a team high and career best 3.5 tackles for a loss. And Fidarian Mathis recorded a career high 7 tackles. Mathis applied constant pressure up the middle as he finished with 1 tackle for a loss, half of the sack, and 1 quarterback hurry.
And on special teams, Jordan Battle made the tackle on the opening kickoff at the 17-yard line. Battle helped limit the Gators to only 15 yards on 2 kickoff returns.
And as we mentioned, Will Anderson Jr. had a big game, and for that performance, he was selected as the SEC Co-Defensive Player of the Week. Anderson led the Alabama defense in production points and also totaled a career-high 3.5 tackles with 4 pressures.
And Coach Saban received an honor this week as well for the team's win on the road in the swamp. Coach Saban was named Coach of the Week by the Dodd Trophy.
This week, the Crimson Tide will play Southern Miss under the lights inside Bryant-Denny Stadium. Kickoff is slated for 6:30. And next weekend's matchup here in Tuscaloosa, the 13th-ranked Ole Miss Rebels will be a 2:30 kickoff time on CBS. Big game next week between the Crimson Tide and the Rebels.
And Roger, the 2022 schedule for the Crimson Tide was also announced this week, and there are some big-time matchups, including a big out-of-conference game with a soon-to-be member of the SEC.
That's right, Kennedy. The Tide will play 5 games on the road starting in Week 2 against Texas in Austin. The other 4 road contests are at Arkansas, Tennessee, LSU, and Ole Miss.
Alabama opens the season at home against Utah State, and the other non-conference home games are Louisiana Monroe and Austin Peay. Alabama's 4 home SEC matchups are against Vanderbilt, Texas A&M, Mississippi State, and Auburn.
An exciting schedule for the Crimson Tide coming up next season.
Especially that Week 2 matchup against the Texas A&M Longhorns in Austin.
Really looking forward to that. It was, of course, another big week for the Crimson Tide in the NFL, Kennedy. The only problem, it was hard to narrow it down to just a couple of players. There are 58 former Crimson Tide players that are currently active in the NFL.
There were so many good performances, but here are Crimson Tide in the NFL Players of the Week.
Derrick Henry had a career-high 35 rushes for 182 yards. He also scored 3 touchdowns in Sunday's overtime victory over the Seahawks. The All-Pro running back also had 55 receiving yards on a career-high 6 receptions. For his performance, Henry was named the AFC Offensive Player of the Week.
Now staying with the Titans, Julio Jones totaled 128 receiving yards. Jones now has 13,053 career receiving yards in 137 games. Julio became the fastest player in NFL history to reach 13,000 receiving yards, surpassing Jerry Rice's record of 154 games.
And Jonathan Allen had a monster day for Washington. Allen totaled 6 tackles, including 3 for a loss, and he also had 2 sacks. You know, there were so many great performances. 4 Crimson Tide former players had interceptions, including Patrick Surtain, who had the first interception of his career. Najee Harris scored his first career touchdown, and also Henry Ruggs. Mac Jones also had huge games.
Now, there are so many great players from Alabama in the NFL now. It makes watching those games on Sunday so much fun.
It really does. And after a big road win for this year's Crimson Tide, Alabama returns home to Bryant-Denny Stadium this Saturday for a non-conference matchup with the Southern Miss Golden Eagles. We'll take a look at that matchup when we return.
TideTV This Week is presented by the University of Alabama, where legends are made. Ford, for great offers on F-150, see your local Ford dealer. Proud sponsor of the Crimson Tide.
In a season of chaos,
You can tell they authentically play for each other.
Alabama does it. Absolute perfection.
How good can the Crimson Tide be again in 21?
It just doesn't show any sign of slowing down.
It's all about the process.
it's more than a buzz at Bryant-Denny.
This guy's not going anywhere.
He doesn't just roll out great players. He and his staff develop them.
Bama's dominance shouldn't scare you. It should energize you.
Welcome back to TideTV This Week. After their SEC opener on the road last weekend in Gainesville, the #1 ranked Alabama football team returns home to Bryant-Denny Stadium this Saturday.
That's right, Roger. The Tide will score off against the Southern Miss Golden Eagles. For a preview of this weekend's matchup, our Christopher England joins us now.
Alabama welcomes Southern Miss to Bryant-Denny Stadium on Saturday night for the Tide's first home game of the season under the lights. It will be the 45th matchup between the two schools, and all 44 previous games have all been held in the state of Alabama. The Crimson Tide leads the all-time series against the Golden Eagles 37-5 with 2 ties. The last time the two teams met was in 2019 when Alabama defeated Southern Miss 49-7 in Bryant-Denny Stadium. Southern Miss enters the matchup with the #1 ranked Crimson Tide 1-2 on the year, with both of their losses at the hands of teams from the state of Alabama. The Golden Eagles opened the season with a 31-7 loss to South Alabama in Mobile. Southern Miss bounced back the following week with a 37-0 win over Grambling State at home.
Touchdown, Southern Miss.
Last week, Troy left Hattiesburg victorious with a 21-9 win. Leading the Golden Eagles is first-year head coach Will Hall. Hall took over the role as head coach of Southern Miss after 2 years as the offensive coordinator at Tulane. Hall was also the head coach at West Alabama from 2011 through 2013. The Golden Eagles leading passer redshirt sophomore Trey Lowe is out for the game. It will be up to freshman Ty Keys to lead the Southern Miss offense. Keys isn't far behind Lowe on the season in production. Keys has completed 20 of 38 for 207 yards and a touchdown while throwing 2 interceptions.
Offensively, I know their first quarterback got hurt, but Keys is a really athletic guy. They do some of the same kind of quarterback runs and things that we saw a week ago. They've got good skilled players on offense. These guys play hard. They're well coached. So, this will be a challenging game for us.
On the ground, Frank Gore Jr. leads Southern Miss with 284 yards on the year, averaging 91 yards per game. The son of longtime NFL running back Frank Gore averages 5 yards per carry and has 1 rushing touchdown on the season. Gore is also second on the team in receptions with 7.
Southern Miss, they have good backs. They have a good team. They run a very good offense, and he's a good back. We're looking forward to the game on Saturday.
It's been tough to run on Southern Miss this season. The Golden Eagles defense is allowing just over 43 rushing yards per game. The Golden Eagles are also allowing just over 17 points per game to opponents.
We have a lot of respect for Southern Miss. I think they have a really good defensive team. They're ranked very high in the country. They've not given up very many points, and some of those points have been field position turnovers and pick sixes and things like that. So this is a very good team.
Kickoff under the lights in Bryant-Denny is scheduled for 6:30. You can watch the game live on the SEC Network. Stay with us. We'll have more Tide TV this week coming up next.
Tide TV This Week is presented by Ford. For great offers on F-150, see your local Ford dealer. Proud sponsor of the Crimson Tide.
What you do every day matters. At Alabama, it's our process that yields legendary results. This is where ideas forge innovation, dreams unleash opportunities, and contenders become champions. How far do you want to go? The University of Alabama, where legends are made.
Welcome back to Tide TV This Week. I'm Kennedy Chase, joined by my co-host Roger Hoover. For the first time in program history, the Alabama soccer team took on Utah Valley this past Sunday.
It was the final non-conference game of the season for the Crimson Tide. Ashlyn Serepka scored 2 goals for the Crimson Tide, and it was only in the first 25 minutes of play. The first was a header to make it 1-0. Then just a few minutes later, Serepka made a sliding kick into the goal for the Tide's 2nd of the game. Serepka then assisted in Alabama's 3rd goal of the match. Serepka centered the ball to Macy Clem at the top of the box, and she kicked the ball over the diving goalkeeper for the Wolverines. Alabama evened their record at 5-5 with the 3-0 victory over Utah Valley.
Wow, definitely a big win for Coach Westhart's squad as they now turn their focus to SEC play.
The Alabama volleyball team had a big weekend as well as the Tide swept the competition in the Bama Bash presented by Hampton Inn.
Alabama earned 3-1 wins over both Houston and Western Carolina. Then the Tide finished the Bama Bash with a 3-0 sweep over Tennessee Tech. It's the 3rd tournament title this season for the Crimson Tide to go along with the Marshall Invitational and Crimson Tide Invitational. Kennedy McElroy was named the Bama Bash MVP, while Brooke Slusser was named to the all-tournament team. Now, the Alabama softball and baseball teams began fall practice this past week. We'll head out to the Rhodes House and to the Joe with the Tide when we return.
You can tell they authentically play for each other.
Alabama does it. Absolute perfection.
How good can the Crimson Tide be again in 21?
It just doesn't show any sign of slowing down.
It's all about the process.
It's more than a buzz at Bryant-Denny.
This guy's not going anywhere. He doesn't just roll out great players. He and his staff develop them.
Bama's dominance shouldn't scare you. It should energize you.
Welcome back. Team 26 for the Alabama softball program hit the field this past Friday for their first practice of the fall. It will be head coach Patrick Murphy's 24th season as the head coach of the Crimson Tide softball team.
Hitting coach Allison Habits and pitching coach Stephanie Van Brakel-Prothero return along with a new volunteer assistant coach that you may be familiar with. Ryan Iamurray, who was part of the Crimson Tide's 2012 National Championship team, returns to Tuscaloosa to join the staff as a volunteer assistant coach.
Let's go to the Rhodes House with the Tide for an all-access look at their first fall practice. And Team 26 will begin their fall schedule on Sunday, October 10th, in a doubleheader against Lipscomb in Nashville.
Alabama will then host teams the following Saturday and Sunday in Tuscaloosa, with the final matchup scheduled for a home game scheduled for October 24th. You can find the complete fall schedule at RollTide.com.
The Alabama baseball team returned to the diamond this week as well. The Tide began practice on Friday. The team will practice over the next 2 months and wrap up fall ball in November.
We've got some special access for the Tide's first practice as we mic'd up Tide infielder Drew Williamson. Let's go all access with Drew and the Crimson Tide baseball team for their first practice of the fall.
They picked the guy with the best stretching form to do the mic today, so.
Oh, you got the mic on?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah, get away. They're gonna hear me breathing heavy in this thing. Got me a little. Don't post this one. Dude, this thing is filthy from doing picks yesterday. I'm hitting the dirt. I'm on 3, 1, 2, 3. Bam. Good pitch, kid. What? Through. Let's go, Pink. Oh. Attaboy, count. Let's go, Pink. Keep fighting, Kip. It looks like 95. Yeah, I'm not gonna tell you it don't. Come on, Slip. God, that's disgusting.
What is that? That's a slider?
Tag him, tag him.
We play hard because it's that mentality of you get to the next spot.
I'm on 3, 1, 2, 3.
What you do every day matters. At Alabama, it's our process that yields legendary results. This is where ideas forge innovation, dreams unleash opportunities, and contenders become champions. How far do you want to go? The University of Alabama, where legends are made.
Another chance. Headed in. Messy moment and a score for Alabama. Oh, a chance for Clem. Rockbank. And Crone is there again.
Hit as he throws. Ball is up. Intercepted Alabama at the 40 down the right side. 2-point conversion try. The running back, and he'll get to the 1, and he is stopped. The quarterback looks his way, then throws. Man is wide open. Caught over the shoulder. Billingsley. Touchdown, Alabama.
And those were our ATI plays of the week. Now let's take a look at our players of the week, brought to you by Legacy of Hope.
JP Cave finished runner-up, just 2 strokes behind the medal winner to lead the men's golf team to a 5th-place finish at the Olympia Fields Fighting Illini Invitational. Cave finished the 54-hole tournament at 2 under par, including a 7 under par finish over his final 36 holes.
And Kennedy Muckleroy hit .318 and posted 29 kills at the Bama Bash, leading her team to a sweep of the tournament as she earned Bama Bash MVP honors.
In soccer, Ashlyn Serepka led Alabama to a victory over Lamar. Serepka scored 2 goals for her 4th and 5th of the season in the Crimson Tide's 3-0 win.
Defensive back DeMarco Helms led the Alabama defense with a game-high 11 tackles, including a game-high 7 solo stops in Alabama's 31-29 win over number 11 Florida in the Swamp. Congratulations to our Legacy of Hope Players of the Week. Another big win for the Crimson Tide. Roger, what do you think?
I think it's pretty good, and hopefully next week we're talking about a 4-0 Crimson Tide football team.
Oh, yes, for sure.
Make sure you tune in next week as we're bringing you more on the Crimson Tide and the all-access content of Alabama you can't get anywhere else. See you next week, everybody. Roll Tide.
Roll Tide.
This has been a presentation from Learfield,